thought it said, like, if someone else has it, you should replace it or something like that, because we're voluntary members. But I could technically mean that I'm gonna do life license soon, and then with my health and fitness license, like as long as I sell something that's like really good in that area, I can still sell it. I can't market selling it, so I can work.
Never in this world.
That's right.
Little handgun really ultimately.
A little bit, but that wonderful woman there, she's actually the redhead. She's from Ashland as well, and she's actually.
Okay, everybody, let's have a seat.
She's here to.
Linda, come on up here.
All right.
You like this thing, I know you want it. Okay, how's everybody doing? Good? Learning something? Yeah, we learned that we have some pretty good products, don't we?
Yes.
And we've tailored this to the firefighters, which I think the products sell themselves actually. And with some more training we're gonna go through, I think you're gonna be able to incorporate what you learned this morning with what Mr. Miller's gonna share with you and what Don's gonna share with you, and we'll have a great day of training. I wanna tell you a quick story. I went to Minnesota last week for a national conference of Firefighter Association. And they come together to share ideas and to give pointers to each other. And Paul had not made it there yet. He was on a later flight, but we had a reception. And you know, I'm a little shy at times, not. So I started talking to everybody, and I said, hey, I'm Danny Gordon, which they don't know me from Adam, but I'm a friend of Paul Miller's. And then all of a sudden, Paul Miller, I'm like their best friend all of a sudden. And it was the most amazing thing. Every single person I talked to, and when I would say my name, I would tie his name to it. My name's Danny Gordon, and I'm a friend of Paul Miller's. And sure enough, everybody started just treating me like I've known him forever, right? Well, I found out later that Paul started this little annual convention they have, so he brought all these state association presidents together to brainstorm how they could do a better job in helping firefighters. And Paul has been the president of the Firefighter Association for 22 years, and he has brought some incredible change, not only legislatively, but also just benefits to the firefighters. He has a passion to help those men and women. And I cannot think of anybody better suited to talk to you about the firefighters. And so I want you to give a nice warm welcome to Mr. Paul
Am I green? You are live. I'm live. Okay. Thank you, Danny.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Well, let me tell you, one of the greatest things that's happened to me recently was meeting this guy, Danny Gordon. I could tell you a lot of interesting stories about Danny too, but I'm not going to, because you'll find out about him as you get to know him better. But he's a brilliant individual. He's a great conversationalist. And the thing that impressed me so much, we had 16 states at this meeting that we held in Minnesota. We had 50 plus people there. And by the second night, every person there had received an email from Danny Gordon, and he knew every person by name. And when he got ready to leave the last afternoon, he went around the room and called everybody by their name, shook their hand, and left. Now let me tell you something. If that's not power, I don't know what is power. But that man is dedicated to what he does, and we have brought together a great team. And I am so excited about this benefit package because I've waited so long, because I served 23 years as executive director for the North Carolina State Firefighters Association. We represent all the firefighters in the state of North Carolina, the career, the volunteer. We represented union, non-union, the whole gamut. And my job was to legislate and produce benefits, and I think we did it. and were then and still are the largest firemen's association in the United States. We have 53,000 members. So I'll tell you this because this is a potential market that you've got to go out and talk with. You're going to be talking to career, and I'm going to tell you how to talk to them. You're going to talk to volunteer, and you're going to talk to members of combination fire departments. And there's a lot of them out there. You're over 1,300 fire departments. Of that 1,300, about 47 of those are strictly municipal departments. And there are a lot of people here from High Point, they're from Greensboro, they're from Raleigh, they're from all around, and that's where your big municipal departments are. But what you're going to run into most of the time, day to day, is going to be those volunteer fire departments or those combination. And the reason combination fire departments have become a big part of the business is if you live on the suburbs of the Greensboros and Raleighs and Winstons and Asheville's, they can't afford a full-time fire department, but they have so many runs, they have to have a crew in the station to make sure the trucks get out. So they might hire 8, 10, 15 career people, and then all of the backup will be the volunteers. So you're going to be talking to a mixture of all those people, and basically you'll talk the same way, but I want to tell you how you might identify and some things that might help as you go through this process. But I want to yield the first minute and a half of my presentation to my good friend Bob Miller, who is no kin to me, but Bob and Michael have become really good friends as we've worked through this over the years. And Bob said he forgot to tell you a couple of important things, and for me to do it before we move forward. One is that on his dental vision and hearing program that he went over so well, he just wants you to know that they will allow list billing if you happen to get into a fire department and they had the funds and they said, we want to provide this for our members. Each member will get an individual policy, but they can list bill and let the department make the payment. Or if they won't, you can certainly do individual billing and when you sell those. But you can do list billing on it. And he also wanted me to say something else very important. It's portable. So if that person ever had to leave the fire service for whatever reason, they can take their policy with them and they don't have to lose it. So just be sure you make notes about that. List billing, individual policies either way, and that it's a portable product.
Paul, excuse me, two things. I believe all our carriers will do that.
Is that okay?
That's correct.
And I should have known that because I've heard Michael's a dozen times. And is that true of?
Transamerica can too.
Okay.
But the individual is a much better way because if they leave, then you don't have to do anything different.
Yeah.
They
And-
can pay by the month by themselves. Okay?
And list billing can get complicated for you because some departments might say, we'll pay it under one bill, we'll pay a portion of it. The check's got to come into us. It can get to be messy.
Try to stay away from that if
Yeah.
possible. And
So-
secondly, Paul, when you keep walking in front of that, you get all these little lights.
Oh,
in front of
okay,
you.
yeah,
So
okay.
either come one side or come to this side, but stand.
I will nail myself down. I have a real hard time doing that, but
You
I'm
walk
going
over
to hang
here,
on
that's
to
fine.
that.
Just right there is a bad spot.
We're fine. We're fine. Now,
Bullseye.
3 major problems that I want to talk to you about that are facing the fire service today. One of those problems is mental wellness. Now, we're not going to be able to solve that problem right now, but that's something down the road that we may as a group want to look at and see if we can offer some help, because we have a real high rate of suicide in the fire and emergency services. We have a real high rate of divorce, family problems, marital problems, those types of things, and they're all related to stress. There's been a great deal of study done on it. There's no denying it. So that is a major problem facing the fire service today. The other 2 problems we are going to be able to do something about, and they are heart attack, which is a huge, and I'm going to give you statistics towards the end of my presentation that'll back this up, but heart attacks and cancer. And these are problems that are being discussed. They're being discussed at the legislature. And what they're trying to do is in North Carolina, see if they can get some legislation passed that will help to make these diseases presumptive. And that is, if you have a heart attack in the line of duty, it's going to be presumed that it was done because of your stresses in the fire service. And if you get cancer, certain cancers, it's going to be presumptive. but no matter how that comes out, there's always going to be a place for us in the market because these people are looking for, they know they need cancer coverage, they know they need heart attack and coverages. So you got a built-in market among all of these people. So I just want to be sure that you realize that what we're doing here today solves two of the three big problems confronting the fire services today. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, I think it was probably about 2 or 3 months ago now, but I think it was the first cancer that was paid in the line of duty to
That's
Firefighter.
correct.
Was in Asheville recently.
That's correct. It sure was. That's the very first one. Now, people don't panic because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, if we get these diseases and they're presumptive, you know, it's going to put us out of business. Now, it really is not going to bother us at all because there's no way you can tie cancer and heart attack and make it a workers' comp benefit because we've already stretched workers' comp about as far in North Carolina. And I'm talking about for firefighters. You know, we have our own volunteer safety workers' compensation fund. It's one of the first in the country to go outside the state and to form their own workers' comp program. We did this back 15 years ago, and I served on that board. And one of the first things I realized was we're going to strain this product to death. There's no way we're going to be able to keep adding cancer and heart attack. So the individuals are going to have to look after themselves because the system is not going to be able to afford to fix. All that will do is just recognize that, and it will activate it with no questions asked, but there's still a market for us throughout all of this. So we don't have to worry about that, but thank you. You are absolutely correct. Now I want to change for just a minute, and I want to tell you about the people. I want to stress to you something. These are my people. These are people I've loved and cared for 23 years. So I want you to be brutally honest with them when you come in and talk to them. I want you to do everything Michael's told you. I want you to do everything Bob's told you. But I don't want you to ever oversell your product. And I want you to answer their questions because these are wonderful people. If there's one thing that I want you to go overboard on, it's service. Because these are great people. I left my home in Moorhead the other day, this morning, and last night on the news, I watched in Jacksonville, North Carolina, they had a car gassing up at a filling station, a Murphy filling station, and they had an explosion, and it wrapped up that whole area, and all you could see was smoke and flames everywhere. And where were our people? They were standing right there in the middle of those flames with hoses, dousing that car, not knowing if there might be another explosion and blow them up, but they were trying to keep people safe all around the area. These people are the salt of the earth. They're not all rich people, they're not all poor people, as Danny said today, but they're usually not people with a lot of means, so when they spend $1, they certainly deserve $1's worth in return, if not $1.50. So my plea to you is be honest with them. Don't oversell your product, explain it well, and help them because they need your help and they will be receptive. These are good, honest, hardworking people, every one of them. So I want to be sure that I tell you that. Now, as you go around, you're going to run into a lot of volunteer fire departments. 72%, I believe, is the latest figure of our firefighters are volunteers in the state of North Carolina. Now that means when you ride through the country and you pass some of these little fire stations, you're going to want to stop, talk to whoever you can talk to, leave a card, see if you can set up an appointment. Remember this, you may go up to the firehouse and knock on the door and nobody will answer because a lot of times there's nobody there until the alarm goes off, and then when the alarm goes off, it's like a flood of people coming in, and when it's over, they all go back to work. I worked for years. I was a deputy chief. I was head of our rescue, but I ran a full-time furniture business the whole time that I was in the fire service and emergency services, and I'm no different than anybody else. I was a volunteer all my career. So these people have other things to do. So you're going to have to maybe go back repeatedly to some of those departments, or if you know somebody who serves in that department, just give them a call, say, I'd like to come talk with you. But there's one rule that I don't want you to forget, and that is that the fire chief is the head honcho in those departments. Whether it's a male or a female, The fire chief is the person whose blessings you want before you go in that door. Now, you can get those blessings in a lot of ways. You might know a guy down the street who's a member of that department. So you sit down and say, tell me this, I'd love to talk to your department about some policies and some things that we've got that will help you with the cancer and the heart attack issues that you're facing. How can I get into your department? They will be your best guide. They will tell you how to get in and get to that chief. But the one thing you don't want to do is start moving through that department and trying to sell something without the chief's knowledge. Because if you do, you've broken his trust and you will never get in that department. So it's vitally important that you find an officer, but always get to the chief and always get his or her blessing before you move into that department. Now, when you move into the municipal departments, it's going to be a totally different story. And our lady is out on a message from Raleigh over here, but we were talking earlier. John McGrath is the chief of the Raleigh Fire Department. Now, John stays in the central office, downtown Raleigh. He doesn't get out of that office a lot, but he's the man whose blessings you need. And you can always identify them because on their collar, they're going to have bugles. It's a little circle, and they're going to be bugles. He wears 5 bugles. If they don't use bugles, they use stars on their collar, and he'll have 5 stars. And that tells you that you got the head honcho. That is the chief of that department. Now, be resourceful. It's just like getting in to see a legislator. I never got to see a legislator until I made friends with his secretary, because she or he was the gatekeeper to that door. And I can remember distinctly one that I needed badly, and I needed him that day because of a bill we had going. And I walked in his office, and the secretary, a guy walked in, kind of broke in front of me and walked in, and he said, I need to see Senator so-and-so. And she said, well, I'm sorry, he's not in. So he left. And I walked in, I said, I'm so sorry the senator's not in, I really need to see him. She said, just a minute, Paul. She got up from her desk and walked over and cracked the door open. She said, Senator Paul's here, can you see him just a minute? He said, oh, sure, send him in. I went in and I got exactly what I needed. But if I hadn't have gone through the gatekeeper and hadn't done it appropriately like the guy in front of me, I would not have seen the senator that day. And that's the way it works in the firehouse. That's the way it works in the military. So whatever it takes for you to get to that guy with 5 bugles, you get there. Now, Raleigh has stations all over town. Raleigh must have 50, 60 stations throughout the city. So what happens there is you may have a captain. A captain has 2 bugles. A lieutenant has 1. You never know on a particular shift who's going to be in charge. Just stop by and say, who's in charge today. I wanted to see him. I wanted to talk to him. And if it's a lieutenant, he may refer you up to the captain who's charged for that day, or it may be to a bat chief or a deputy chief. It probably won't be a battalion. It'll probably be a captain or a lieutenant. But just so you know, all these guys, you got an order. You got the big chief, that's McGrath downtown. You got district chiefs. He's over about 4 battalions, which means about 8 fire departments. You got battalion chiefs who have 2 to 3 departments apiece, and then you got captains and lieutenants. So anybody that can hook you up, get you hooked up. And somebody from Fayetteville, didn't I hear you say you were from Fayetteville this morning? Fayetteville, I've been trying to get in there and work, and I have to go over by A&T University, go in their headquarters station. I talk not with the chief there, because the chief who just retired, your new chief, he really doesn't have time for that, so he assigns that to a deputy chief. I go in and talk to that deputy chief, and he can give me what I want and get me through the process. So I think you see what I'm saying. You've just got to go through the proper command to get to where you want to go and get to talk to who you want to talk to.
Paul?
Yes.
Can I ask, I know we're working on it, but is there a way to get all the names of the chiefs and their addresses and email addresses, stuff like that?
Absolutely. It is my hope that I am going to be able to, the State Firefighters Association will not endorse any product. They got completely out of the insurance business and farm it all out. But I think because of what we're doing, I'm going to be able to generate a list, and my hope is to get it by county, and then the department, and the address and the chief and the contact email and the phone number at the very least. And I'm going to generate that. They may ask me to hold it, and if they do, that's no problem. We'll hold it at statewide. And Cherie or somebody will manage that within the office, and you can call in to them, or you can call me. I'm going to leave my cards here with my cell phone number on it, and you can call me, and we will help make those assignments. And Danny may have already a plan worked out. When he gets that, he probably will do the assigning. But yes, we're going to get you some information to work with so that it makes your job easier. And I feel certain I can do that.
Okay, so Danny, I just want to understand, so this is not an endorsed product, these are products that just.
Yeah, let me explain that.
Please do.
Yeah, so the association has multiple vendors that have been selling to the fire departments for a long time. And some of these, like VFIS has been in there 30 plus years, probably longer than 30 years. And so they got their hooks, but they sell property and casualty, some benefits package, but they don't get to everybody. And so we finally got permission to talk to the firehouses. Now, they're not gonna endorse, because they don't wanna endorse anybody, because they don't wanna get VFLS or Provident or any other vendors upset. But they just said, if you wanna go see them, we're okay with it. So you can go in. Now, we have used that to get into firehouses already. In fact, I think we have 12 firehouses that we're already in. So we already have, they cracked the door for us. We've stuck our foot in it, and now we're gonna swing it wide open.
Okay.
So you can't say we're endorsed by the association. We have their permission to be here.
Okay.
And I will tell you this, Danny is exactly right. We're not endorsed, but we're solving a problem, and they're really going to, as soon as we prove ourselves, and that's why I say I want you to treat them well, I want you to be careful, because the first problem we could have is a complaint, and that complaint will go straight to the Firefighters Association, and as soon as they do, they're gonna lock down everything and say, you know, y'all are causing us a problem, we don't wanna have anything to do with it. That's why I say undersell and overservice. If you have a problem, for heaven's sakes, call me or somebody and let us try to resolve it before it gets to be a bigger problem. We can't afford to have any of those, because once we get in and once they hear good stuff, they will embrace us and they will open that door wider and wider and wider,
That is
because
the
we're
goal.
solving the problem.
Right.
And that's what we're after.
Ed is the assistant director, but I think soon to be director. But Ed, I had time to spend with Ed last week, and we get off to a good start. We get some good positive news coming in. We're gonna swing that door wide open, and I think eventually we'll be the endorsed company, agency. But we're the new guys. There's some people been there 30 years, and unfortunately they've done a terrible job, and they've been selling inferior products, which has been a benefit for us because that creates opportunity. And I mean, they've been overpricing, overselling, and I think we're gonna do a much better job.
Have they had a guaranteed issue product before?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, they've had a blanket policy that went to everybody,
But wasn't much benefit.
but there wasn't much benefit there. But no, I don't think they have had a product like this. And I know where you're going, and I don't think that means a lot to them. The fact is, they want to sit on the sidelines, but they also want to see the problem solved. And if we do it and do it in the right way, as Danny said, we might not get an outright endorsement, but we'll get endorsed in private circles, and they'll say, you know, if I was you, I would call
That's right.
Danny Gordon, or I'd call Michael Gindy. You know, I would. It'll all work out, I promise you, if we do it right. We just do not want to in any way upset anybody, make anybody mad, or upset the apple cart. But doing what we know how to do, and you, because you're all professionals. You see, there are three sides to this puzzle, and we talked about this a lot. And Danny's the distribution side of this puzzle. That's why you're here, and that's why he said unless you had this training, you couldn't go to fire departments, because he is the professional. He knows how to do this. He also has products that come from these great companies, and we know that they're unbeatable products. And my side of the pictures is the relationship side, and my job is to make that relationship work for all parties and make everybody a winner, and in particular, the North Carolina State Firefighters. Because believe it or not, associations all over the country, right, Danny, look to North Carolina to see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how can we do it. So if we do a good job there, it opens up many opportunities. And one of those opportunities is I'd love to go out to other emergency service organizations later after we get our feet wet and get the job. We're going to have plenty for you to go out.
Because the EMTs, the early responders, there's 250,000 people in the state of North Carolina.
And I know very well the head of the North Carolina Association of Rescue and EMS, Joel Faircloth. He is a good friend of mine, and I plan just as soon as we start working to go sit right down with Joel and see if we can't duplicate the same. Now, many people cross over. Like I was a member of both organizations. There will be many others, but there are also some standalone people that are just fire and just EMS. So, you know, we'll combine all that and others. There's people like the Forest Service. There are many others that we can bring into the fold. So our work's really just beginning, and there's a pile of it. Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. Who was the old group, so we can make sure not to mutter their name in any way? And then, secondly, has there been like an annual meeting normally of benefits presented to firefighters, or is this have they maybe not been contacted at all in a few years? Is this like a fresh thing? Or is it a
You know, believe it or not, they've never seen a program like we've put together. Okay. So to answer your question, though, yes, there are people knocking on their door all day long. We got to differentiate ourselves. And I wrote a letter, and Danny has got that, and he's approved it, or he's going to modify it however he wants to. And you're going to have that letter that's going to say, from the desk of Paul Miller. And you're going to carry that with you. And there's always going to be, now I retired in 2013. The chief may have changed since then, but there's always going to be somebody in that department that's probably still carrying a card that I signed for them years ago to be members of the association. So we're going to do everything we can to get you a professional start, a professional presentation, get the data on how to contact them. We're going to give you every tool that we can give you to get in there, and then present our program, which is going to be unique. They've not seen a program. Now, there are carriers like VFIS, there's Provident, there's ESIP, there are other carriers who do P&C predominantly, but they also have some other products they like to sell, but they're sort of secondary. These are main products with us. This is what we do, and we do it as good as anybody can possibly do.
Okay, so Paul, Jeff brings up a good question. Let's say you go and talk to somebody and he's open. He said, yeah, you know, the VFIS agent was here last year. How should they deal with that? What would be a good response to that?
You know, say, well, tell me about his product. Tell me what he was trying to say. You find out a little bit about what it's about, and just start selling our product and just show them why our product is a better product.
You pivot and just keep going.
Just the way we distribute the product, and the quality of the product itself, and the fact that we have a relationship that's established with the North Carolina firefighters, and that differentiates us in the marketplace. So play off of that, use that to your advantage.
And another good point that I want you to remember, I got to visit with a lot of state association presidents, and they don't do hardly anything, to be honest. But when they do get a benefit, they stick it on their website and hope someone clicks on it. Well, no one ever clicks on it, right? So they don't sell anything. I like to say, as someone mentioned earlier about the personal touch, you know, gee, we're going to sit down with each firefighter, we're going to tailor the benefits to their situation.
That's right.
I mean, that's personal.
And it's local.
When we presented in Minneapolis, everybody I think that presented said, we've got California casualty, and we've got this life insurance, we've got this and that, and we'd say, well, how much are you selling? Well, quite honestly, not much of it. Well, how do you present it? Well, we put it on our website, and all you have to do is go click on. Well, come on, folks. How many of you are going to go on a website and click on an insurance product and start some conversation? You're not. So the thing that really differentiates us is our distribution system. We're putting people, personal touch, face to face, people to people, discussing the product and coming in the door. And let me tell you, don't get discouraged either.
Having so much experience in the field and dealing with the firefighters, I know sometimes time is difficult during the day to catch people. Like trying to catch Terry Register during the middle of the day, good luck. So it's because we have busy people and the chiefs are busy. Is there a time of day in general where they are at the desk doing paperwork, those types of things?
Well, no, not for volunteer departments, but there are times when they're all meeting. And I was gonna say that, but now's as good a time as any. Every department and every county has specific times that they meet. My department meets second and fourth Wednesday nights. We have a business meeting on the second. We have a training on the fourth. So when you get in there, you need to find out when they're holding that meeting. But beyond that, you need to find out when their county-wide meeting is, because every county, once a month, in most counties, they are going to have a county meeting. If it's not once a month, it's going to be quarterly. You need to find that out. You need to call whoever the president of that association is and ask to be put on the agenda for that meeting. And they will put you on the agenda and tell you you've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you tailor your program to whatever they give you. But you should always be able to catch a fire department on their meeting night. And there's usually a couple of opportunities a month, and you should be able to catch the entire county at least once a month. So you've got
a group presentation at that?
Sir?
So you'll give a group presentation at that?
I would recommend you come in with a PowerPoint. They usually have the equipment set up, and that you do just a quick overview. And here's what's gonna happen. Don't get discouraged. You might go that night and get one person to talk to you. But if you can ever get one sale and get your foot in the door, it just sort of, over a period of time, you'll find yourself coming back and writing more and more and more. Because these people network. They talk among themselves. And if you get a good success story going in one department, it's just going to build and build and build. So don't be discouraged if you go out one night and you have one or two people talk to you. Maybe you get one sale out of it. And you may go in and get 10 sales. We've had that happen. But you may not, it might not be a landslide the first time. But just try to get one or two people really interested, get them going, and just build on that. Don't be impatient, because they are hard to get up with, they're fast moving, and they're busy. Joey?
Paul, one thing for the group, if you can't find the information, most fire departments, Paul, will have a website.
Yes.
Go to that website, find out who the chief is, DC, etc. It'll help you in making that presentation, let alone, like Paul was saying, when is the time to set up? So you don't waste your time. Very critical. Time's expensive, you know that.
Now, let me share this with you also. If you want to take it up to a little higher level, there are quarterly meetings of the three major associations. We got so big in the North Carolina State Firefighters Association that we were not able to get contact down, into the grassroots. So what we did is we broke the state up into three regions. We got the Eastern North Carolina Firefighters Association, the Piedmont North Carolina Firefighters Association, and the Western North Carolina. There are 33 counties in each. One's got 34 down on the coast where you got all the little counties out there in the northeast. But basically, they have representatives. They meet once a quarter somewhere in that 33 county. It revolves and rotates. But if you will go to this email address, ncsfa.com. That is the North Carolina State Firefighters Association website. If you look up at the top, it'll say meetings or associations or groups. Just tap on it and keep searching. You'll find the website for each of those three regional associations. They'll tell you what night they're meeting, what time they're meeting, whether there's a meal or not, and there always is. And and it's good too, let me tell you.
What's the website again? NC what?
NCSFA, North Carolina State Firefighters Association.com.
One thing, this meeting Paul is describing, this will be the decision makers.
This is your chiefs.
Yeah.
And your chief officers. And they have some rank and file, but you usually have the big guys there, and they're all talking.
So you can do a quick pitch with the chiefs, then go and see them individually.
And then
and then get the meeting times for their departments
to do a full presentation.
And here's what I'd say. If there are 7 or 8 of y'all that are working the West, why don't you all team up and go together, be there to answer, introduce your team. Because, see, we want people to understand, we've got distribution. This is the difference in a program working and not working. We've got great products, and we want to share them with you. So carry a bunch of your folks with you, meet with them, talk with them afterwards, and then get your assignments and go out to your individual departments and sell them. I mean, there are 100 ways you can skin this cat, but you need to know that you've got this hierarchy of meetings. You've got the regional ones that are quarterly, the county-wide ones that are monthly, and the departments, which are normally a couple of times a month. And once you find that out, you can start meeting with them and helping to sell products. Yes, sir.
Will they allow you to sponsor the meal?
Yes, sir. They sure will. If you want to sponsor a meal, you can do that, and that carries a lot of weight. I will tell you that. In many ways, that carries a lot of weight. But yes, you can sponsor the meal. And I'll tell you something else that's effective. And I saw Danny do this very well. And that is, you can not only sponsor the meal, but if you don't want to do that, you could bring something that's important to firefighters. It could be a helmet, it could be a radio case, it could be any piece of product that you could buy from Galls or offline somewhere that relates to fire. You can have everybody put their card in a basket, and then you can draw at the end of your presentation and give that away. That builds great goodwill as well. But the beautiful part is then you got everybody's email address, you know who the chief is, you got the phone numbers. So think about those things. There are lots of ways you can do that. And you can preen good information and then hang on to that information because it will pay dividends in the future. But yes, meal sponsors, great. Now keep in mind, sometimes you have 150 people at some of those meetings, but it's very doable, and a lot of people do that. The FIS does it, Provident does it. Many of the big players, big truck dealers and vendors, they will do it.
Now, my stepdad used to be a cop, but I can't remember Galls. Is that G-A-L-L-S?
G-A-L-L''S.
Yep, okay.
And they put out a catalog annually,
Like
and it's loaded with fire and EMS. And there are others. Just look up fire equipment. You can find something that'll be affordable to you that, you know, you may want to get a couple and do a drawing at
The
one of
drawing,
these.
man, it's amazing when you get free stuff. You get all excited.
We didn't have
like
anything in
$2.
Minnesota. Probably my fault for not thinking about it. So Danny reaches in and pulls a $100 bill out of his pocketbook.
They
He said,
got some excitement.
he said, cash, you know, you can do anything you want to with cash. Man, the cards went flying in that basket when it came around. And when it was over, Danny had a basket about this big full of cards. And by midnight, every one of those went on a spreadsheet in Excel in his computer. And he was sending out messages to those folks, as I said.
At midnight.
And at midnight, and calling them by name. And let me tell you, when he left, a lot of people came up to me and wanted to know. And of course, I have to tell the story. Who is it? Your next door neighbor, Carrie Underwood.
Rascal Flats is the 2 doors up.
Rascal Flats, and
And
next
Carrie's
door
up
is
on the other side.
Carrie.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, it's kind of like Snow Hill. I live next to the same people, those kind of people. But his life makes a great story. Man graduates from Wake Forest with a biochemistry degree. He's accepted into medical school. He asked his daddy for a year off to start play with a little insurance business somebody told him about. And look, he makes more than 10 doctors put together today. He lives the kind of life he wants to live, and he helps people because he is a good man. So you got good people behind you. You got Michael, you got Bob, you got Danny, you got Don. I mean, this is a first-class group. This is a first-class group. Now, I'm going to open this up to questions in a minute, but Danny's going to start calling time on me, and there's a couple of pointers I want to make. One is you don't have to go very far on the internet to look up cancer and heart attack and fire and find some statistics. Now, we're going to try to reproduce these. This is in a PowerPoint that I use. But this comes from CBS News this past January. And it was aired in the Raleigh market for anybody that saw it. A firefighter has a 29% higher risk over the general public of developing kidney cancer. from NIOSH, the National Institute of Safety and Health, which is a recognized authority when it comes to studying illnesses and by occupation. NIOSH study of firefighters find increased rates of cancer in the respiratory, digestive, and urinary system. Firefighters have a rate of mesothelioma 2 times greater than the U.S. population as a whole. This comes from exposure to asbestos, says NIOSH. The increased risk for cancer that have been measured by studies compared to the general population show testicular cancer 2.02 times greater risk than the average public. Multiple myeloma 1.53 times greater. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 1.51 times greater. Skin cancer 1.39 times greater. Prostate 1.28 greater. Malignant melanoma 1.31 times greater. Breast cancer 1.31 times greater. Colon cancer is 1.21 and leukemia 1.14.
Okay, now, Paul, just to put that in perspective, what's the chance for men getting cancer in general?
1 in 2.
That's 50%. So now you just tack on the 1.5, you just added 50% more.
That's right.
Of that 50%, right? So now you're in the 70-some percent. I mean, you're talking about very high risk numbers to getting cancer.
I think I am correct in this statement that since 9/11, every firefighter that made entry into the buildings or was in the area around the buildings has died. There's not one left living, and I believe I heard that statement made in Minneapolis. I cannot verify that, but I'm pretty sure that it was an accurate statement. Have died because trying to save other people. Just like those people at that gas station could have been blown to smithereens if another explosion had occurred while they were under that tent. Great people. And here's another one for you, and this is also NIOSH. Sudden death from a heart attack event is the most common cause of death among firefighters. Can't dispute it. You know, you might argue with the numbers. You might say it's not 1.21, it's 1.28. It doesn't matter. We have much greater chance of having cancers. We have much greater chance of dying from heart attacks than the average public by far. So you've got a great product, you've got a great audience, and an audience that needs what you got to sell. Just got to be there and got to grab their attention and kind of hold them. Sometimes our people move fast and they're hard to pull down and get to sometimes, but they need it and they'll listen. They're smart folks.
Get their blessing.
Yes, sir. Get their blessing and keep everybody happy, because if they're all happy, we're all happy and everybody wins.
Paul, when you talk to a firefighter, let's say you're at the firehouse, the single people, no problem, but what about the married people? Do we want to bring the spouse back in?
Yes, sir. Somebody I was with not long ago, and we were doing this, and they made it a point. They set up a special meeting to talk to all the firefighters, both male and female, who wanted to talk, but they said, I want every one of you to bring your spouse with you. Because I'm going to tell you something, I don't know how it is in most households, but if my wife decides we're going to do something, I just get my pocketbook out and hope I can afford it, because we're going to do it. And vice versa, if you're a female firefighter and you bring your husband, you may still lose to the female too, because they're really dominant ladies. My wife was a firefighter too, but anyway, they're going to make it happen if you have your spouse with you.
Are the females just as prone to all these cancers?
Oh yes, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. They don't list as many of them, but yes. And if you look at the law, the laws that North Carolina is introducing now to make these presumptive, you'll find a whole list of ovarian, breast, and others. And for some reason, and it has to do with turnout gear, and I'm an NC State graduate, and I'm real proud of the fact that they do a lot of testing of equipment over in the engineering school for both flame retardancy and for other things. And we're beginning to develop. Now, if it wasn't a problem, listen to this. There's a company that just made a huge sale in California this past week, and I know the guy who made the sale. He sold them all new turnout gear, and the reason they were able to do it, they convinced the city council They have built in all kinds of cancer protection barriers. Men, prostate, you know, because there just is not a lot of protection. So they've gone in those areas and they've put more baffling or more whatever they put to make that equipment safer. And that city said, we're going to do whatever we can to protect our members. And they bought thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of that turnout gear. Why? Cancer. But we still are prone to having problems no matter how much we train. I bet you I can still take you somewhere and see somebody cleaning up after a fire, walking through, have taken the breathing gear off, and you say, why are you taking your breathing gear? That's the worst time of the fire because now it's partially burned carcinogens, and they're sucking them into their lungs, and they're going, well, it's just so hot out, we got to have a break. Man, don't do that. Leave your gear on and then rotate fresh people in and out. But we're still making bad mistakes, so we're always going to have a market, I'm afraid. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
In your thought process, when I met with the fire chief here, I didn't know this, but Wake Forest is a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 attorneys on their board, and so when we look at all these other fire stations, are most of them run by the city, or are a lot of them individuals like that is incorporated?
The 47 fire departments that I talked to you about that are municipal, they are entities of local government. Most of the other fire departments you're going to run into are nonprofit, hopefully 501c3s, but some are 4s, some are 5s. I've run into different ones, but they're all going to be 501c corps, and they're run by a board of directors. And that's an interesting point. I have run into departments where the chief really didn't have any authority over this, the board did. But I still want to touch that chief first, and he'll say, you need to talk to our board about this. And if he does, then you go talk to the board about it.
That's what he told me.
Yeah.
He said, I'll put you in there with the board and you talk to the board. He said, but let me warn you, he says, the town of Wake Forest has a 1.5-year study going on right now trying to see if they want to pull us into them and let them give us all their benefits. And I said,
You mean pull you into the city?
Yeah.
There are some departments that do. Now, my department, we did the opposite thing. My department was a dual department. We were a municipal department for the town of Snow Hill, and then we were a rural department for the Contentnia Fire District. So same manpower, same equipment, same station, 2 different contracts. One chief, though. Now, what we did, before I left, I recommended to our board that we pull out as a town department because we were beginning to have to answer to things and do things that they didn't want to do. I said, let's just pull out and let's contract. We'll just contract with the town, and they'll pay us X number of dollars, and we just got down and we crafted our budget, and we saw what we needed from the town. We padded it what we thought was appropriate, and then we presented it to the town, and now they just give us a check, and they don't have anything to do with the fire service.
Well, that's how theirs is here in Wake Forest, so that's probably the way they ought to still keep doing it.
There's advantages to both, I'm sure, but if I had my preference, I'd rather be calling the shots and have firefighters calling the shots than to have city fathers calling shots who know nothing about the fire service, and they don't care.
What did you do for health insurance at that point?
Well, we were all volunteers, so you know, it's a little easier for us. Now, those departments that are combinations, they're a little more challenged because they do have to provide benefits for a portion, and then you got the volunteer side of the house, so it gets to be a little more complicated animal. And there are going to be more and more combination departments coming in the future, but we're still going to be predominantly volunteer. So you're going to be okay.
Are those board members eligible for these programs?
Yes, sir. Let me tell you, board members, aunts, uncles, whoever they want to include, am I not right? It's just like any affinity program. It's like a credit union. If my cousin belongs to state employees, I can actually use state employees credit union. Are we the same way, Danny? Now, Danny sets this up. So
immediate family, I feel pretty confident about, but aunts and uncles and stuff will need to get a ruling on.
Okay. All right. So immediate family for now.
What about retired people already retired?
Yes.
All right. That's good news because
Yes, sir.
we are trying to get all the retirees because we want to sell SIGA products and Medicare Advantage.
And they definitely fit into the affinity definition.
Yeah,
because
so
they've given their time.
Well, what's the good news? You want to do it, or you're close to doing it?
We're close to getting that one figured out, because I don't know how many retirees there are.
I'm gonna guess we got probably 20 or 30,000 retirees still at least.
Yeah.
And maybe more, probably more. You know, we've never tracked them. Well, we do track those that want to, but if a department doesn't want to carry their retirees, so they have to pay $25 a head, then we lose track of those people. But for those that are, there's plenty of retirees on there that we can get our hands.
We're trying to figure out how to crack the nut on getting the information, the data.
And I'll tell you, once the word gets out, they'll start calling you.
Right.
Because they want that coverage. If it's gonna be available to anybody, they want it. So it's important for you to leave your cards around where people can get hold of you and they'll call you back.
See, I think this just tipped the iceberg for us. We get in, we start selling some of the products, you start building relationships, you're gonna go back and sell other products. Pretty soon we're gonna get the retirees. We're gonna own this puppy.
That's right.
And so, but first things first.
That's right. We gotta crawl before we can walk, but we are very capable of crawling well.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, sir.
Paul has been gracious enough to give all of you his card and his cell phone number. I don't know if I would be that gracious, but in fact, I know I'm not gonna be that gracious, but he is, and so he is a wealth of knowledge, and you should remember his name, because like I did at the conference, anybody you talk to, you find a way to bring Paul Miller's name up, okay? That'll open the door for you.
Yes, please feel free.
Okay, Don. Don, you're up for the last session. You're gonna get his presentation. All right. We good? Anybody need a quick bathroom break? Do we need 2 minutes? 2 minutes. 2 minutes? 2 minutes, then. Fine. Let's do that. Fine, let's go.
You guys get some?
You know, the link should be fine and everything's fine.
For that afternoon coffee? Gonna be me. I'm sitting in the front row. That's right. Okay, got it.
This one is not my state line.
Up the stairs, just walk around to the ring.
Oh, yeah, the cell number. Oh, yeah, I promise. You got one, sure, right? No, no. Down that way. We were there. Yeah, that was
Jeff Godwin. Jeff Godwin. It dawned on me while you left. It's good. Sometimes you just gotta be inspired. Yeah. He is. I think he's having some health challenges.
I heard that, Ryan was, coaching the ball team.
One of the schools over there, not Rocky Mount Academy, but what's the other one? They're rivals. Whatever it's called.
Nashville, I think.
Yeah.
Coach.
Yeah.
Is he still working at that?
I think so. I'm so removed from this, you know, like it's in my new role.
I'm sure if
My
I
audience is a
saw
little
her
different than it
outside,
was. But yeah.
there's so many.
You know that Trip
Everybody
Shaw?
knew me.
Oh, yeah. Shaw.
I tried to know as many people.
I don't know
that name.
I bet it's right. I might be wrong on that, but he said to me that on the way home.
Yeah, exactly. I'll pop it in there.
Yeah. Well, heck, you can start next week.
Right.
Blowing it away. I've known Tim. And actually, Tim, what year? Guilford College.
think he was on
And then, I mean, I hit Time Cross Rescue, and Vernon Ward was there, that's how I knew Tim. Vernon was our president here, but I knew Tim before that and after that. I know, That's it, yeah, that's it, that's exactly I can't think of
Maybe there's an FSA. I think I was an NCFSA for that. NCSFA.
So if you see him telling, I said,
I've been with Sam all the time. His mother, his mom,
I appreciate it.
As soon as I get the 3 hours done, then I can.
If you're standing right
We
about
don't get it extended.
here, and you
He can talk about no problem.
but if you're going.
Thank you.
It's still.
You certainly Hey,
Thank you, sir.
the cell number and the email.
Okay, guys, we're gonna start back up.
Okay, thank y'all. Yes, sir.
I'm citizen,
All right, well, welcome back. And there's one point I told you guys in the previous presentation that I was going to tell you about regarding the policies, and I realized that I forgot to do that. So I'm going to start with that bit of information. The policies that you sell with the Trans-Elite are going to be mailed directly to the client, right? They're also going to get a separate mailing from the NAWP that includes their NAWP card and the certificate that says they have a $5,000 term policy. So what you want to instruct your clients is call me when you receive your policy, because then you want to tell them to take their NAWP packet of information and put it in the policy with the actual life insurance that they get for the Trans-Elite product. So that way, if they were to pass away and their family opens this up, they're going to see, here's your $50,000, $100,000, $60,000, whatever policy for the life insurance, and here's your certificate from NAWP that says you have an additional $5,000 on that term plan.
Are they 2 separate policies?
They are 2 separate policies. But the second one for the $5,000 is not an actual policy. They don't send a policy. They send a certificate that's part of the membership. So that's how that works.
But how do they name the beneficiary? They just take the information from the original policy.
Right. Okay. All right, let's do this. We're going to talk a few sales techniques now. We've heard a lot of product information. You've heard a few sales ideas. Michael did a really good job of giving you some ideas on talking to them about cancer coverage. But what I want to talk with you about is closing and solidifying the sale. But this is not regarding the clients that you're going to be talking with. The first and most important sale is going to be made to whom? That's right, the chief. Okay? So I want to talk with you about some ideas. Now, you can obviously use these same ideas in closing a prospect on buying an insurance policy. But the key sale in any affinity marketing is to get that decision maker on board. All right? If they think it's a good idea and they let you speak in front of their group, you're getting at least what we call the implied endorsement. So I do a lot of seminars for Medicare. and I actually travel around the country and do trainings for agencies, but I have a group of associations in my community that ask me every year to come speak at their group for Medicare. And so I have really the implied endorsement of that group. Last week I had a doctor call me, I went to one of the meetings and I'm going to be turning 65 and I need you to help me, right? And so, that makes a difference. So what you want is you want that fire chief or that deputy chief on your side. So what we're going to talk about is what are some of the things you can do to help close the fire chief on giving you the time and the request that you have to speak to all the members. All right? So what do most of us think of when we hear closing? What's that? The end of something, okay. Final sale. Kind of adjectives do you think of, like someone's closing somebody? Okay. So, what's that? Most people think of closing, arm twisting, high pressure, that type of stuff, all right? Trying to get someone to do something they don't want to do, all right? That's when you're closing. If you've probably seen some movies that has people trying to sell things to others, and it doesn't have the most positive connotation, okay? It actually has a very negative connotation. The reason that a lot of people don't like to be sold something, okay, is because they don't want to feel that pressure to make a decision if they haven't made up their mind yet, okay? And so most consumers have not been trained, or most salespeople have not been trained to do it properly, and most people have had a bad experience. That's why people don't want to be sold something. That's why if we walk into a store looking for something, maybe I'm going into a clothing store and I'm looking for a piece of clothing and the salesperson comes up and says, "Can I help you?" What is our natural reaction to say? Just looking, yep. Well, well, of course I'm looking. I wouldn't be here if I didn't need to buy something, but we don't want to be closed, okay? Anybody can become a salesperson with no training. And so, unfortunately, there's bad salespeople out there, okay? Another problem that I find is that a lot of salespeople are trained to do selling or closing in a style that's not compatible with their personality. So then it just becomes fake and it doesn't work anyway. So, the other thing is I find that a lot of salespeople get nervous, and so the prospect then picks up on that nervousness. So that's why you want to know your product and you want to know what you're going to say. So when you're talking about fire chiefs, I want you to understand closing is not something you do to someone, right? You obviously want the fire chief to say what? Yes. You want them to say yes, all right? So what we have to do is we have to make it easy for them to say yes. And closing is not something you do to someone. It's something you do with someone, and it's something you do for someone, all right? What it truly is a series of steps that you take to help somebody to decide whether they want to move forward and give you the endorsement and have you come on or not. It's breaking down a series of really big decisions into a series of small decisions, make it easier for people to come to a conclusion, right? So you have to break it down into small bits in order for them to agree to let you come and speak to them. Now, oftentimes also, a lot of people who say, "I really like this and I want to do this," they end up not doing it because there's too many unanswered questions. When are you going to come? How long are you going to stay? What's going to happen to the people after, this meeting is over with and you meet with them? I mean, there's a lot of little decisions. And if they don't know all those answers, what's the easiest thing to say? No. I mean, if you've answered 2 of my questions, but I've got 5 and I'm just uncertain about it and I'm going to put my name on this and then you're going to go do something to one of my firefighters that's going to make me look bad. No, it's just easier to say no. So you need to make sure that you've answered all their questions and you do it in a way that doesn't put pressure on them, okay? I tell people that closing properly is one of the kindest things that you can do for your prospects. Improper closing is rude. We all know the answer to that question, right? One bite at a time. That's how you eat an elephant, okay? That's how you close people. Series of small decisions over time. that is going to bring them to yes. All right? So how do you do that? First of all, you have to make sure that you have uncovered their needs properly in the introduction. How do you uncover their needs? That's right. You ask questions. All right? And so you're going to be given materials from Danny and group that's going to be able to allow you to know which questions you need to ask, but you have to make sure you have discovered the motivation behind those needs. Like if you're talking about cancer insurance, one of the products we have is cancer insurance. Who do you know that's ever been affected by a cancer? How did that happen? What became of it? Did they have radiation? Did they have chemotherapy? And you start bringing that stuff up. All right, that's how it works. You have to engage their emotions because of it. That's going to be part of what gets them on board for wanting to help solve the problems. I mean, think about this. Why do firefighters, for a volunteer thing, why do people volunteer to be a firefighter? Not the pay, right? Okay, we've established that. Think about that. They want to serve.
They want to serve, they like the rush, they want the challenge.
They want the challenge. They want to serve. They want to help people. Absolutely. Fire chiefs are the same way. They want to help their firefighters. So you have to tap in and you have to listen and you have to make sure that you figure out what's the motivation behind why they would actually do this. Now, one of the reasons is because of Paul. I mean, they're going to know who he is. All right, so that's really going to help you. All right, you need to make sure you mention his name several times as you're talking to them. All right, you make sure that you've answered any objections in advance correctly. Make sure you've created a buying atmosphere. These are just all parts to make the close go easy. You're going to want to give them a short demo that shows that your service will do what they are looking for. When they understand, like Paul was saying, the incidence of cancer and how much higher they are in firefighters, and that you have something that can provide them and their families with a solution for that as a way to help them, then that's going to motivate them to want to work with you. You want to create a plan that fits their need and their situation. Don't force yourself onto the next agenda if it's full. Don't put pressure on them to say that I have to be at the next meeting just because you need a commission check. All right? If they say, well, it's going to be the meeting in August before we can get you on the schedule, then you say, that's fine. All right? So that's the thing. Like you don't want to push it if it doesn't fit. All right? Also, you want to make sure that you finish with showing them what a good deal they're getting. And that leads us right in to buttoning this up. So your first sale is to the fire chiefs or the deputy chiefs, allowing you to be able to come in and present. So you have to uncover their needs, you have to establish rapport with them, you have to ask questions, you have to make sure their questions are answered, and you have to lead them through a series of small decisions to be able to say, yes, you can come and present to our group of firefighters. Now, once you've gotten that, of course, at the end of every sale, you want to do what we call solidify or button up the sale. Right? If you've been trained at all in sales, you know that that is one of the steps in the cycle of selling. The way I teach cycle of selling, there's always the establishing rapport, there's the building trust, there's the creating the buying atmosphere, there's discovering the needs, there's doing suitability analysis, right? There's your demo, your presentation, there's trial closing questions, there's closing at the end, and then finally, here we are, the button down, or the button up, or the solidifying the sale, okay? So that's the typical sales cycle. So this is the warm down, or whatever you say and do right before you leave, all right? It's when you review with them what we have just accomplished. So that's the last part. Now, why would you want to take all that time? You've already said it once. Why would you want to do that? So there's no gray area, right, because you don't want to have them think that you said one thing and it's really another way, and then that created a false expectation, then they're going to be unhappy, and then you blow it up for everybody. So that's a great answer. Why else do we do this? Anybody ever make a sale to somebody and then what?
It's a reminder. Why did I do that?
Why did I do that?
Why did I do that?
You want to solidify the sale to prevent buyer's remorse. Okay? I mean, come on. If you're selling insurance and you've taken all the time and money to buy leads, prospect, set up a time to go visit with them, sell the product. If there's underwriting, make it through underwriting. You get the policy and you go to deliver it and they say, well, I've changed my mind. I mean, like, come on. I mean, this job is hard enough, and then I have the sale right there, and then I lose it. You're going to go, what happened? Okay, well, people change their mind. People forget. In fact, most people forget half of what they hear within the first 24 hours. So it's really important that you tie this thing down, you button it up, you solidify what you have covered with them, so that between now and that meeting that they said you could come in and speak at, they don't change their mind and say, well, the schedule's full, you can't come. All right? We had somebody else come in and you're just going to have to wait, or I'll get back with you, don't call us, we'll call you. You don't want that. All right? So you want to prevent buyer's remorse. So it's really important that what you do is you answer any remaining questions that they might have. Okay? So here's what you ask. How do you feel about what we just set up? How do you feel about what we just did, for the agenda for the next meeting? Just ask them, how do you feel about it? Well, I'm kind of so-so on it. Okay. I sat with a guy a couple weeks ago in my office. He goes, and he just kind of crossed his arms and he looked at me and he goes, I hate life insurance. Because I was proposing to him a long-term care policy. Well, when you've had 4 mini strokes, insurance company won't take you, all right, for a long-term care policy. And they won't take you for a short-term care policy. But you know what they will take you for? Transit Elite. Okay, so all of a sudden you don't hate life insurance anymore, all right? So the point is, you want to make sure that you button up the sale, because if there's any point of dissatisfaction, any little bit of doubt, think of it like a little seed of doubt, you don't want that to grow between now and when you come back to do your presentation, all right? And if there's more than one person, maybe it's the fire chief and the deputy, okay? And by the way, this goes the same thing if you're in a household with a husband and a wife. How do you feel about what we did today? Ma'am, how do you feel about what we did today? Sir, you want to make sure that you do that in your regular closing as well. Make sure that they feel about it. If someone goes, I like it, but I'm just really concerned that it's not going to fit into our budget. Okay, well, maybe we should reduce some of the benefits, so you just need to make sure that you cover that, because you don't want them changing their mind. So what you do with the button up or solidifying is you review with them what we just did. What we've accomplished today is this. We've set up the appointment. We're going to be on the agenda. We're the third to present. I'm going to have the presentation on a PowerPoint. I'm going to cover 3 different products, or 2 different products, or one product this month, one product the next month. You just review with them everything you've done so that there's no confusion on it. Okay? You can also use what we call the before and after approach. You can say, now, before I came in here, your firefighters didn't have anybody that was going to be willing to sit down with them on a one-on-one basis and tailor-make a plan to fit their specific need for their family. But now, after we do this, I will be able to have, individual meetings with them and their family if they need to, help answer questions, give them the coverage that they'd like to have, that they really, really need. So you can use the before and after approach. Before I came here, it was this way. Now it's this way. And of course, you can also review with them the carrier brochures of the products. Anything and everything that you think is important. If they mentioned something was important when you were asking the questions, you want to make sure that you show at the very end how what you're proposing is meeting that need. So don't rush out the door after you get the yes. Take a few minutes and solidify the sale. All right? Now, if you get an objection or uncover a possible problem, bring it up right now how they should handle it. So when you sit down, when you're talking to the fire chief and you're talking about these insurance and they say, yeah, I'm a little, how do you feel about what we've done today? Well, I'm just a little bit concerned because one of the oldest serving firefighters on our volunteer department is actually in the insurance business. I'm not really sure how he's going to feel about another insurance agent because he's sometimes, you know what I'm saying? That might be a concern of theirs. And you might need to say, well, I'm really glad you brought that up. These products were specifically chosen with firefighters in mind. The cancer benefit we have has this genome testing. The dental plan, gives back on every policy that's sold to the Firefighters Association. You see what I'm saying? The long-term care benefit doubles on the life insurance, and that's not available in any other product. So it's not really like we're competing against him. We're just offering unique products that were hand-chosen for the department. Great. So now when that guy comes up and he sees the agenda and he says, hey, you got another insurance agent coming in to speak to everybody? I do insurance. Yeah, well, just want you to know that these are different. You see how we've just, warded off that thing? Okay, fire chief's not going to stand up there and endorse you and slap you on the back and say, we really want you, if he knows that, the local insurance guy over here is going to be offended, who carries a lot of clout in the area, in the volunteer department, right? So that's why you want to ask these questions. You want to ward off any objections or concerns that they might have. One of the objections, the concerns they might have, is they might just want to put it off. All right? Procrastination. We talked about that earlier. That's one. Or the insurance agent they already have a relationship with. So, review the timeline of what's going to happen next, set the expectations, and know that it may take more than one meeting than to get the information to everyone. So if they don't have high turnout at their meetings, you might need to say, I'll be here for the meeting, and if we don't have everybody there, I'll just plan to come back to the next one again. Literally, the more times you can get in front of these folks, the better. Even if it's the same presentation you're doing, because people forget half of what they hear within 24 hours. And if you know anything at all about marketing and commercials, companies use the same commercial over and over and over and over again. Like, why do they do that? Why do advertising companies do that?
Repetition. Can't remember it.
They want you to remember it. See, here's the thing about folks. Most people will not want to make a decision on something and take action on it until they feel comfortable with it. Right? Most of the times, we don't feel comfortable with something unless we've had repeated exposure. So the brand new product that you hear advertisements on over and over and over and over and over again is done that way on purpose to condition you to get comfortable with it, because if I'm comfortable with it, then I will act on it. So the more times you can get in front of those people, the more comfortable they're going to feel with you, and the more times you're going to find that after their third time hearing you, they'll want to sit down with you. So, set the expectations that it might take more than one meeting for everyone. Like Paul already told you, better to under-promise and over-deliver. Make sure you do that. And of course, most importantly, congratulate them on what they have just done. They have set you up to come back. I just want to say congratulations on making that decision to have me come back and talk to everybody in your department. That was a good move on your part. Like literally, congratulate them. Make them feel good about a decision that they just made that they might have a few questions about. They maybe had a different insurance person from one of those other companies Paul was telling you about, came in, they hadn't been trained properly, didn't really know how to sell the product, the benefits weren't that good, it was just kind of a lukewarm reception by everybody, they're kind of, really, insurance agent? Who wants to hear them? Okay, so you want to congratulate them, make them feel good that they just let you set up an appointment to come back in and speak with their whole department. So those are a couple of closing and solidifying the sales ideas, mainly targeted for the fire chiefs, but of course you can use those in any kind of selling situation that you're in. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to take a second and just kind of do a little role play, because I want to make sure while Paul is here, we don't say something we're not supposed to say. So let's say, and I'm just shooting from the hip here, but I just had this wild idea, so I wanted to try it out. So Don's the fire chief. I come up here and I say, hi, are you the chief? And
Yes, I am.
Hey, let me introduce myself. I'm Danny Gordon. I was assigned to come by and see the firehouses in this county. And the the association, the Firefighter Association, has allowed us to come by and talk to you about special benefits designed for the firefighters.
Oh, okay.
Can I say that?
Um,
I didn't say endorse, I just said hey, allowed.
yes, because they have told us we could go.
See, I'm trying to figure out what's the line, the hook to get.
Just
and
don't ever say that they're endorsing us, just say that.
They have allowed us.
They're aware of our being in the area and allow us to come.
See, and I like the word assign, I was assigned these firefighters.
Well, you will
Can
be
we use the
assigned
word
one.
with?
You just can't pick one out and go into it without being assigned it.
Right.
Sir, can we use the word with? The word with, W-I-T-H?
With the association.
No.
Nope, okay, alright.
So just,
Assigned by.
No, that you're,
Yes.
you're,
Not
they're
assigned by
allowing
them.
us, I bet you that's where the limit is,
Yeah,
they're
but just-
allowing us.
and then I'll say, yes, in fact, one of the people I work with is Paul Miller. Do you know Paul Miller?
Oh, yes, I know Paul.
Yeah, Paul has been an advocate for firefighters, and he's been finding get great benefits for firefighters, and even after retirement, he's figured ways to bring great benefits to the firefighters. I'd love to take a minute just to share with you some of the products we have.
Okay. Well, how long will that take?
Just a few minutes of your time.
Okay.
See, and so I just want to get in to sit down and talk to them. That's all I want. Because once I sit down and talk to them, I can sell the products, and then by questions like Don was saying, find out what his hot spots are. He might have a big passion with cancer. Oh gosh, I've known 10 firefighters have had cancer, and I know what it does to the family. You never have enough insurance.
Right.
Well, you're really gonna love our cancer. And then, of course, the life insurance. I mean, it's a great product, so we should be able to sell that too. But let's get one product first. We're gonna sell them all. I know we are. I know when you go back, you're gonna keep, like Don said, you're gonna keep bringing up more products. But we gotta get in the door. And once he says, yeah, you can come and talk about the cancer plan. Great. You do a good job. Hey, chief, let me tell you about another product that we really designed for you. We got the great hearing, dental vision hearing, we got the life insurance, and the life insurance got these great benefits that you will not see in the other product, and it's guaranteed this year, just for firefighters. I mean, once you start that relationship, well, you gotta start it. And so, I'm just trying to get in and sit down and talk to the video. That's all I want. And trust me, I'm gonna use and if I've got 2 other fire chiefs that already let me in, you can bet I'm bringing their names up too. In fact, I was just talking to Cheryl, he runs the department, or firehouse 2 or whatever, and we had a great reception there, and I'm sure you're gonna love some of the stuff that we have. But you gotta have what you're gonna say down. In fact, I'm thinking about we
I
should,
think you should come up with a script.
You know what?
Like a 3 or 4 minute
You-
pitch.
should we do that for you? I can do that, we can do that.
Yeah, and it's also important, like, if I was finishing with a fire chief who set it up, I'd say, you know, I need to go see several other fire chiefs. Who do you recommend I go see next?
Yeah, that's great.
Oh,
I mean, that's totally what you ought to do.
Just for all, that is a great idea. This way we're all saying the same thing.
Yes.
Nobody sends a glitch, a spike, something low.
okay, you got it. We're gonna, Don will probably do it. Don is going to put us.
By midnight?
Don, I'm
He's
sorry.
got me an hour and a half on the plane ride on the way home. I guess I'm gonna be working today.
We'll put a script together, and we'll make sure Paul puts a stamp of approval, but we'll add the little nuances into it, and where you can throw in a name or 2, right? Yeah, Jeff?
Quick question here, and it's more for the, any opportunities that they might ask you about. I mean, we all represent other life and health products. So if they ask us about other things, I mean, obviously we want to rep these products first. They're strongest for the firefighters and their families. But what if they just ask us about something else?
Okay.
I mean, you guys are talking about senior market stuff. We don't want to just sit there and say, no, I'm not going to help you personally.
Okay, this is what we got set up.
Okay.
Okay. The deal is, we want to keep it controlled. We want to sell the products that we've already done the vetting for. We know they're good products. But let's say the fire chief is retiring. He wants to get his Medicare, and he's got $500,000 in a 401k, and he wants somebody to help him with that. All right, you're not going to walk away from that. You're going to say, okay, $500,000 annuity, that's a pretty good commission. I can help him with the Medicare. The deal is this. You check back with your agency, let them know that you've got a product that you wanna sell, and then there's a 20% referral fee that goes to statewide for bringing the deal to you,
Gotcha.
okay?
Okay.
So we use the Northwestern model,
Okay.
20%
Straight up.
referral,
Age one.
and I think that works well. So now, it's obviously on the honor system, but if we find out you did it and you didn't share, then that'll be the end of that. So, but I would think that most of us are gonna be high integrity, and if you do run in a situation where you can sell something else, we don't wanna walk away from the sale. We'd like to know what you're gonna sell, so we can say, okay, we think that's a good product, and that's fine. And then, the 20% split. Is that acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that'll work. All right. So, but the script, I wanna get back to the script. I think having a script is a better approach. And we're gonna tailor it, and we'll put the ways to add the third-party endorsements nice and neat in there, and how to get at it. But,
Can I make a suggestion? Since there are just 3 products, I would not assume cancer's the lead or whatever.
Right, I know.
30 seconds on each one, and then ask him, like you said, ask questions. Which of these do you think?
find
would
out
be-
which one has got a real affinity to,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Yes.
that's what I think, and then tailor it for that particular, department.
Now, we know though, from just doing surveys with the chief, we know cancer is a hot topic. Okay. Yes, sir.
I would even say hit it with a shotgun blast. Say, we just did some training with Paul here, and we talked about these 3 products that were critical to you.
Well, I like that approach.
And that way you never, you don't know which way they're gonna go.
That's right.
And which of these would you like me to present at your next meeting?
Exactly.
Exactly.
So it's just not a matter of if I'm gonna present, it's just a matter of which product I'm gonna
So I
show.
like the assumptive approach that way,
Assumptive
because then it's like, well, everybody's letting us talk.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's letting us talk, and I like it. See, this is good.
And you can even say which of these present the biggest challenge to you.
Right.
Mhm.
That I agree.
And another point, that was a good point, because you're letting the chief make the decision.
Right.
And let me tell you, there's nothing a chief wants to do more than be in control. I can promise you that.
Right.
Okay, so we see that we've answered some objections in advance. I like that. That's good. So we'll put a script together, because I have everybody's email, right? Everybody signed up, put their email. We'll have a distribution put together. We've got Paul's notes and statistics that we'll email out. We'll also get a script together for the introduction to the chief.
We
I
send
think
those
that-
3 presentations.
You know what, we can send the agent presentations
Yeah.
to you, yes. Don can, I don't think I have a problem sending the
And I think I gave it to you, didn't I, Danny? Do you have it? If not, I'll send it again.
I have the
The
presentation.
PowerPoint, yeah.
Yeah.
The retail one that can be shown to clients.
I don't know if I have that.
Okay.
Send that to
I'll
me.
take care of that.
Okay, Don, thank you.
You're welcome.
again. All right.
Thank you.
Good
Ron.
to see you. Okay, we're getting to the end of the day. I know some of you got some long drives back. I want you out before the rush hour and all that. But as we wrap up, what I'd like for you to do is I'm going to ask each one of you to share one idea that you really picked up from today's meeting. One idea that you thought was just the best idea. Okay? So let's start with the new kid. The newbie.
Spot real quick.
Yeah, I didn't have time to think. There was honestly so many. I was really impressed with the cancer research and like the, how do you pronounce it? Genome. I was really impressed by that. Had no clue that was even.
So you learned something really good today.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, going off what he said, I think that aspect on its own will sell the product itself. And you can even add in that they're way ahead of the curve. Not many other companies, really any, you said zero offer that as well. And the long-term care double face amount is very intriguing as well.
That's a great benefit.
Yeah.
You don't see that on
Exactly.
That's guaranteed issue, that is not even heard of. Linda?
Well, I mean, from an idea standpoint, I'm just sitting back coming up, I had to talk with that gentleman back there about ideas to approach this and, the power is in the masses. You're not gonna,
Linda brought up a thing that I really like to present as an option, tag team.
Yes.
Because I know this, one of the number one fears for people is what? Speaking in front of a group. And so I'm gonna bet not all of you are comfortable with speaking in front of a group. And so maybe you wanna partner with someone that can, and then y'all can share. I'm just thinking out loud here, cause that is gonna be a challenge for somebody.
Or even like Paul said, how we go as a team, so then they see that we're in numbers and we're working together and we're able to service you.
Absolutely. So you gotta work that out with your agency, and, but that's something that I'm always a big, proponent of, is working together, working in partners, having two, because if you're at a meeting, let's say 10 people come up and say, hey, I wanna talk to you about this. If it's just you, they're not gonna wait around too much longer. So, and in some of these firehouses are 80, 90, 100 people. And you get 10, 15, 20 people that rush up after you finish, you know, you don't wanna lose them, right? So, that's why teamwork, I think, is a good idea. And, okay, so, we're here.
How the projects are tailored around firefighters. That's very important. And I think it will be some firefighters.
And you know, we did that very quickly. Very quick. Well, I did. Just pat myself on the back a little bit. All right.
The TransLink, I like all the extra benefits that are added onto it, like the $5,000 term, identity theft protection. I think that's an interesting way to just add on to it. There's not just another life policy.
You should.
The guaranteed issue with only 90-day wait as opposed to 2 years.
That's huge. Trust me. We're probably one of the largest life insurance agencies in the country, and we never had a problem like that. So, all right.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, but you know, they're all portable too, so that's a great thing.
Yeah, very portable. I like that.
The cancer it's on for me, and so I like what he said. I think tailor it to
The treatment.
the treatment. It's a big issue.
Yes, instead of the shotgun approach.
And then with universal, the premiums are waived.
Okay, good.
I think the products are great. I really like Paul speaking to how to approach the hierarchy in the firehouse.
Yeah, now you remember, who's at the top?
Chief.
Who's underneath the chief?
Captain.
Deputy chief.
Captain.
And then lieutenant
Lieutenant.
chiefs. And then captain. And lieutenant. And they got bugles or stars, right? 5 is what you're looking for. Okay.
I know the vision and dental's not the big meat there, but you know, everybody uses vision and dental just about. And when people start to buy,
And they use their plan and they get their money's worth, that's pretty good.
Yeah, they'll step up and purchase some of the other products too.
You know, I'd have to say, I used my dental vision plan and I couldn't figure out how the company makes money. Cause I got more money back in benefits than I spent in premium, and so, but I'm sure it works out somehow.
I would say the guaranteed issue with the long-term care router benefit. A question too is, how do you visualize you going in, you see the chief, you get sort of an okay, or you get an okay? Do you have to go to a group meeting before you can start seeing the guys in the firehouse? I mean,
You just need his blessing, and if you can go one-on-one with us,
So
that's
you don't
fine.
have to wait for a 50-man group meeting to start.
Yeah, you can set up a table in one of the rooms and you could be there and people will swing by and talk to you. You can do it that way. I find the group meetings the best way to get information out to everybody. And then the ones that want to, you can say, after the meeting, I'm gonna be here for the next 3 or 4 days. Come by and see me at so-and-so room and I'll be there to answer questions. Or bring your spouse, you can set it up that way. But there's all kinds of ways to skin this cat, so.
The life is just a laundry list of things that set it apart, really included when you said it with the whole association, plus the next gen approach to the cancer. And it comes with it. It's not something you pay for or pay a rider for or something like that.
It's a great benefit, absolutely. Joe?
For me,
absolute need, the numbers, you know, how much they need products like this, like a cancer. 1 out of 2 men, and then now even
Greater than
75%,
that, yeah.
averages up, you know, it's just, we have things that they absolutely need to provide help.
Absolutely, because you do not know, my wife had cancer and, it's been 24 years ago, but she's fine, but all the things that happen when you get cancer, your life is turned upside down. It is turned upside down. And, what about you?
Sure. Probably just the importance of getting buy-in from the chief, and so just setting him up so that he's ultimately the one making the decisions.
Yes, because if you feel like he made a decision, you're in. Yeah.
The long-term care rider with life insurance.
So that's what you like best. That's good. I do too, by the way.
I like that also, but also with the dental, that the membership fees built into the cost of it there. I mean, it takes that worry away from them that they have to pay an extra fee separate from what they're paying already. Makes it easier on them.
It does, and keep in mind, every sale made, what does the fire association get back? $12, right? I mean, it's not a lot for one, but if you have 2,000 or 3,000, it sure does add up.
And be sure that they know it's going back to the Fallen Firefighters Foundation, which is very popular among the firefighters. They have a huge annual ceremony, service, and we'll get a lot of recognition for
The
that.
FFF, Fallen
Firefighters Foundation.
Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
I thought it went to Heroes and Shields. Is that the same?
Well, actually, yes, but it's going through Heroes and Shields to the local level, and for us, the local level is gonna be the Fallen Firefighters.
Heroes with Shields is just a name of the council.
That whole conference.
Yeah, that's what we put together. We made that. We thought it sounded pretty cool. Okay.
The life product with the guaranteed issue, the long-term care rider, that was, to me, that stood out.
You already got 20 people signed up, don't you?
25.
25. I know you told me you had a lot of people signed up, so, okay, good.
I enjoyed learning about the cancer insurance. I think it's really important. It's super affordable, so nobody thinks they're gonna get it, but a lot of people do. So
A lot of people do, yes.
I just want to say, I think that you guys did a really good job of using second person language, the we instead of the I versus the you. I do the same thing when I meet with clients. Every decision that they make, I make with them. I'm in bed with them. I mean, everybody I speak to, I mean, I'm going to talk to you or your family later about it. So, like, I don't have to apologize. So, I think that's really powerful, and that's really powerful to buy in. I do have a question.
Sit with, side by side when we present.
Absolutely.
We're deciding together.
I mean, it's always a we thing. It's a community thing. There's no really stronger community-based thing than firefighters. I mean, everybody's always happy when the fire department shows up. You know. I do have a question though, Paul. What is the best joke that you have for firefighters?
I have to think about that.
Right.
Give me a break.
I'm gonna need one or a
I'll come
few.
up with
Okay.
Here's what you can do. Everybody has Alexa. Just say, Alexa, tell me a joke about firefighters.
There you go.
And she'll rattle off 8, 10 of them. Keep asking. So.
Okay.
For me was listening to Paul and how to approach everybody, but the thing that stuck the most was the caring aspect of it. You know, undersell but overserve. You know, take care of these people because that's what we're ultimately
Treat
gonna
them
do.
well. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You, sir?
Yeah, you know, the long-term rider, and the reason is because Thrive as a company, we've been pounding that in our trainings for months now, different ways to do that. And many people don't realize that other companies have offered that in the past, like Unum and Allstate, but they never had where it rebuilds itself. It just kind of depleted and was gone. So that's special.
Danny, right?
Yeah.
How can I forget?
Right.
I thought there are 3 great products, but at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
It is.
And the one thing I'll take away is if you're going to have a meal, be sure you have a raffle to get everybody's card.
That was clever. I got everybody's card.
I'm feeling
What
that.
$100 bill will get you.
That's a low cost for leads.
It's a low cost. I got everybody's card.
I think because we can go into a group of people and present a lot of very beneficial products to them. Just the whole package, how it was put together.
It's a little easier than turning 65 people, isn't it?
I was out there yesterday. It was pretty hot.
Or knocking on doors. I mean, let me tell you. A lot of people they're on the do not call list, so you gotta go knock on their door, set an appointment. It's 93 degrees outside. Even in the evening time.
I'll tell you,
And Danny, you know, when you guys are presenting to groups, it's going to be so vitally important to you to get your card and introduce yourself to each person individually before you give the group presentation, because it does two things. If you notice, I did it with everybody today. It just bonds us a little bit, makes us friends right away, which makes it that much easier to present to that group, because now you're just talking to people that you know. And also then, it makes it that much more, you are that much more approachable when you get done and you say, hey, I'll be over there. It'll be that much easier for them to come over and talk to you. So
that's a great point,
Yeah.
pass out your cards.
Yeah.
I do that a lot too in new situations. All right, well, thank you so much for coming today. Now, the next steps moving forward after today, one, you have to be appointed with all three carriers. So as soon as you get appointed with all three carriers, then I will get a notification from your agency manager, and we will appoint some fire stations too. Okay? Now, I got everyone's name, email address, and I know what city you live in, so we will probably most likely appoint the ones where you live, which will be easier. And most likely we'll do 2 or 3 at the first assignment, and then just see if you want more, or if you have good success. I don't have any problems giving you more, all right? However many you can manage and service. But I think that when you get into it, I think it's like Paul said, you might get in there and you get a 10 or 15 sales, but then you come back. And you're gonna be a familiar face. And then you come back and you'll do another presentation, or you do a different product, or you're gonna come back and just check up on people, and you're gonna pick up more sales every time you come back. So, it's gonna be a good deal. We're gonna be able, I'm really pushing to get the retirement next. That's what I think we're doing.
and you're gonna be pulling referrals from all of these people too, and then you're gonna get referrals from the referrals, and boom, 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 so.
All right, this is,
Yeah, it's huge.
this will be door knocking, all right? Nothing wrong with door knocking, because I've knocked on 10,000 doors, over 10,000. Don, I think's got me beat. We sold books door to door in college, so with Southwestern, and that's where I learned to sell. Okay, so what do you have to do? You gotta get contracted. If you're not contracted, well,
And how do they get contracted? See their upline?
Upline.
There you go.
Yeah, Mark has the links for the Transamerica. I just talked to Terry, I saw his link, he just sends it to you. GTL, you just get the paper contract, or if they use Insurance Bay, you can do it on Insurance Bay. And then UCT is also on Insurance Bay. Yes,
Chris would like me to ask, are these open enrollments or rolling enrollments?
rolling,
Rolling.
ongoing. I thought about putting a time limit on it, because pending events tend to make people make decisions faster. But the truth of it is that we can't really force it for every fire station. Let's just keep it, otherwise, we did a long-term care enrollment. We had, we put a 45-day time frame on it, and we wrote 776 LTCMs in that 45